Some minds don't wander. They patrol. You replay conversations that ended 3 days ago. You notice the exact moment someone's tone shifted, and you filed it. You walked into a room and read it before anyone spoke. You've already imagined 4 versions of a situation that hasn't happened yet. And somewhere along the way, you decided this meant something about you, that you were wired differently, that you saw what others missed, that your mind operated on a frequency most people never find. Maybe that's true, or maybe your nervous system never learned that it was safe to stop. Because here's what nobody tells you. Hypervigilance and depth feel identical from the inside. Both are exhausting. Both make you feel different from everyone around you. Both convince you that the weight you're carrying is invisible. But one of them is a gift, and the other is a wound wearing the mask of intelligence. You thought this meant you were thinking deeply. But what if your mind was never searching for truth, only for safety? What you're about to hear may change the way you interpret your own mind, not to silence it, but to finally understand why it never learned to rest. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with seeing too much. You notice the pause before someone answers, the smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, the way a person laughs a little too loud when they're uncomfortable. You read the room before the room even knows it's being read, and most of the time you're right. That accuracy feels like a gift, and in many ways it is. You've navigated situations others walked into blindly. You've protected yourself from things that never even had the chance to become problems. You've understood people on a level they didn't understand themselves. There's a quiet pride in that. Not arrogance, something more private. The kind of satisfaction that lives in the chest, not the mouth. The feeling of moving through the world with your eyes fully open while everyone else seems content with the surface. You think in layers. You feel in layers. Conversations that most people forget in an hour stay with you for days. Not because you're obsessive, but because you're processing something real underneath the words. You don't just hear what people say. You hear what they meant, what they were afraid to say, what they revealed without realizing it. And for a long time you called this depth. It felt like depth, it looked like depth. People around you probably even confirmed it. You're so perceptive, so thoughtful, so aware. But noticing everything is not the same as understanding it. There's a version of perception that comes from curiosity, open, expansive, free. And there's another version that comes from somewhere much older, much more urgent. You learned to call it depth, because calling it vigilance would have changed everything. And the truth is, this didn't start as intelligence. Think back to a time when the air in a room could change everything. Not the weather, not the lighting, the mood of someone you depended on. You felt it before they spoke, maybe before they even entered. A tension in the silence, a weight in the footsteps, something slightly off in the way a door closed. And without anyone teaching you, you learned to read it. You learned that a certain kind of quiet meant you should disappear, that a specific tone of voice meant the next hour would require careful navigation, that the safest thing you could do was become invisible, agreeable, or useful, fast. So you watched, you studied, you became extraordinarily good at anticipating what was coming before it arrived. That skill saved you. In a very real sense, it protected you from things a child should never have to face alone. But here's what happened inside the brain that was doing all that watching. It built a system, a finely tuned, incredibly efficient radar for emotional danger. It learned that the world was a place where things shifted without warning, where safety was never guaranteed, where reading people correctly wasn't a hobby, it was protection. That radar became your normal. And then you grew up. The environment changed, the people changed. The actual danger, in most cases, disappeared. But the radar didn't. It kept scanning. It kept filing. It kept preparing you for threats that were no longer there, in rooms that were no longer dangerous, with people who had no intention of hurting you. Before it became insight, it was survival. The problem is, your brain never got the memo that the danger ended. At some point, something quietly shifted. The radar that once kept you safe didn't disappear. It evolved. It got sophisticated. It learned a new language. Instead of just sensing danger, it started explaining it. Instead of just feeling pain, it started theorizing about it. The emotional became intellectual. The wound became a framework. And it was brilliant, honestly, because thinking about a feeling is so much more manageable than actually having it. When someone hurt you, you didn't collapse. You analyzed. You mapped their psychology, traced their patterns, identified their triggers. You understood why they did what they did with a clarity that almost felt clinical. And that understanding created distance, comfortable, protective distance. When a relationship ended, you didn't grieve, you diagnosed. When anxiety arrived, you researched it. When vulnerability knocked, you opened the door just wide enough to observe it, then closed it again before it could settle in. You became fluent in the language of human behavior, not entirely by curiosity, but because understanding people meant you could anticipate them, and anticipating them meant they couldn't surprise you, and if they couldn't surprise you, they couldn't hurt you. That's not depth, that's architecture, a beautifully constructed interior world designed not to explore truth, but to keep certain truths at a safe distance. The thinking became the buffer between you and the rawness of actually being in your own life, and the cost was invisible at first, because from the outside, and even from the inside, it looked like wisdom, it felt like growth, it sounded like self-awareness. Your mind didn't become deeper, it became harder to reach, and this is where the confusion begins. There's a distinction most people never make, because from the inside the two feel almost identical. Both are intense, both are exhausting, both make you feel like you're operating on a level others simply don't access, but they move in completely opposite directions. And once you see the difference, you cannot unsee it. Deep thinking sits with a question because the question itself is fascinating. It tolerates not knowing. It wanders into ambiguity without needing to resolve it immediately. It can hold two contradictory ideas at once and find that tension interesting rather than threatening. It stays present, even when presence is uncomfortable. Defensive thinking does something else entirely. It scans for what could go wrong. It analyzes people not to understand them, but to predict them. It rehearses conversations before they happen and autopsies them long after they end. It mistakes preparation for wisdom and control for clarity. It moves fast, not toward truth, but away from uncertainty. And here's the part that makes this so difficult to recognize in yourself. Defensive thinking is incredibly smart. It produces real insight. It notices genuine patterns. It isn't wrong about people. It's just motivated by something other than curiosity. It's motivated by the need to feel safe. So you built an entire intellectual identity on top of a nervous system that was simply trying to protect you. The analysis was real. The perception was real. But underneath all of it, the engine running the whole operation wasn't wonder. It was fear wearing the clothes of philosophy. A deep mind moves toward truth. A defensive mind moves toward control. And when you live inside defensive thinking long enough, it starts to change how you connect with people. You've never struggled to connect with people on the surface. You're perceptive. You ask the right questions. You make people feel seen, sometimes more seen than they're comfortable with. In the first hours of knowing someone, you already understand more about them than their closest friends do. And yet, there's a particular kind of loneliness that follows you into every room. Not the loneliness of someone who can't connect, but the loneliness of someone who connects brilliantly up to a certain point, and then quietly builds a wall right where intimacy would begin. Because real intimacy requires something your mind has been trained to avoid. It requires uncertainty, the terrifying, uncontrollable kind, where you cannot predict how someone will respond, cannot prepare for what they'll say, cannot protect yourself from what their presence makes you feel. Real connection demands that you show up before you know it's safe, before you've analyzed the situation enough, before you have an exit strategy, and your mind, that extraordinary, exhausting mind, interprets that vulnerability as danger. So it intervenes. It starts reading their tone for early signs of rejection. It finds hidden meaning in a 3-word text. It builds entire narratives from a single moment of silence. It keeps you perpetually one step ahead and permanently one step away. You don't lose people because you feel too much. You lose them because you interpret too early. Before they've even had the chance to stay, your mind has already written the story of how they'll leave, and so you keep people at the exact distance where they can't hurt you, which happens to be the same distance where they can't truly reach you either. That's not protection anymore. That's isolation with excellent reasoning, and the modern world quietly makes this worse. Imagine designing a world perfectly engineered to keep a defensive mind in permanent overdrive. You wouldn't need to invent much. Just take everything that already triggers hypervigilance, unpredictability, social ambiguity, information overload, the constant possibility of judgment, and deliver it in an endless frictionless stream, straight to the palm of the hand, available at 3 in the morning. That world exists. You're living inside it. The digital environment doesn't just distract an anxious mind, it feeds it. Every notification is a micro-alert. Every unanswered message is a puzzle. Every curated version of someone else's life is data your brain quietly files under comparison and inadequacy. The scroll isn't passive consumption. For a mind already wired to scan for threat, it's active surveillance. And the algorithm knows this. Not maliciously, but structurally. Engagement is highest when emotion is strongest. And the emotions that keep people watching longest aren't joy or curiosity. They're anxiety, outrage, and the particular dread of feeling behind, left out, or not enough. So the content adapts. It sharpens. It delivers exactly the kind of stimulation that feels like information but functions like static, filling every silence, eliminating every gap where actual thought could breathe. The result isn't a more informed mind, it's a more reactive one. A mind that was already exhausted from decades of internal surveillance now has an external surveillance system running in parallel, 24 hours a day, confirming its deepest suspicion that the world is a place that requires constant monitoring. A mind trained to anticipate danger will find endless evidence online, not because the danger is everywhere, but because that's exactly what it was trained to look for. Eventually, something inside begins to collapse. It doesn't announce itself. That's the thing nobody warns you about. There's no dramatic breakdown, no single moment where everything falls apart at once. It's quieter than that, and in many ways, far more devastating, because it happens in the margins. In the small, private spaces between one thought and the next, it shows up as a kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. You rest your body, but your mind keeps working the night shift, replaying a conversation from Tuesday, rehearsing a scenario that may never happen, filing away details that nobody asked you to remember. You wake up already exhausted from a night spent inside your own head. It shows up in the way presence becomes impossible. You're sitting with someone you love, and you're simultaneously somewhere else, monitoring the interaction, reading their energy, calculating your next response. The moment is happening right in front of you, and you are entirely unreachable inside it. It shows up as empathy that has curdled into exhaustion. You feel everyone, deeply, constantly, involuntarily. The stranger's tension in the elevator, the unspoken conflict at the dinner table, the quiet sadness behind someone's casual remark. You absorb it all without permission and carry it without knowing where to put it down. And eventually the system that was built to protect you starts to consume you, not from weakness, not from failure, but from the sheer relentless cost of never switching off, of living permanently alert in a world that stopped being dangerous long ago. You didn't burn out from doing too much. You burned out from noticing too much. This isn't sustainable. And somewhere beneath all that noise, a part of you already knows it. And the way out isn't thinking better. Here's what nobody tells you about healing a mind like yours. It isn't about thinking less. It isn't about silencing the intelligence that has carried you this far, or dismantling the perception that makes you extraordinary. The answer was never to become someone simpler, someone less aware, someone who notices less and feels less and wonders less. The shift is far more subtle than that, and far more profound. For most of your life, thought arrived before experience. Before the feeling could fully land, the mind was already interpreting it. Before the moment could breathe, analysis had already begun. Thinking became a way of staying slightly ahead of your own life, always processing, never quite arriving. The shift begins the moment you reverse that sequence. Not permanently, not perfectly, just enough to feel the difference between thinking about being alive and actually being alive. Enough to let a feeling exist for 3 seconds before you name it, explain it, or file it somewhere safe. Enough to sit in a conversation without simultaneously narrating it. This isn't weakness. It's the most courageous thing a mind like yours can do, because it means tolerating the one thing your entire system was built to avoid: uncertainty, rawness, the uncontrolled, unscripted, unmapped territory of genuine presence. Your body has been waiting for this, not your thoughts. Your body. The breath that never fully deepens, the shoulders that never fully drop, the jaw that holds tension like a locked door. There is an entire physical life that has been waiting patiently beneath the thinking, quieter than language, older than analysis, more honest than any theory you've ever constructed about yourself. Peace begins when thought stops trying to outrun feeling, not because thinking is the enemy, but because you were always more than just a mind trying to survive. You were never broken. You were never too much. Never too intense, too analytical, too inside your own head. You were someone who needed safety and built the most intelligent structure you could find to create it. That deserves recognition, not diagnosis. But you've carried it long enough. The mind that learned to patrol can learn to explore. The system that was built for survival can be slowly, gently, rewired for living, not through more analysis, not through another framework or theory about yourself, through experience, through presence, through the radical act of letting a moment exist without immediately explaining it. You are not your hypervigilance. You are not the exhaustion, the isolation, or the infinite loop of thought that follows you into sleep. Your mind was never the enemy. It was just protecting a heart that never felt safe enough to rest. And maybe, for the first time, it can. If this reached something real in you, leave it in the comments. When did your mind stop exploring and start defending? And if someone in your life needs to hear this, send it to them, quietly, the way you've always understood things worth understanding, without saying a word.